Distinguished colleagues, we welcome our new Senator, Senator Austin Okudili Akobondu, and we wish him well in the red chambers of the Senate. Senate Leader.
Point of order.
I greet you.
Point of order. I didn't talk to you.
Hey, show this.
Distinguished colleagues, the Parliament is in session. We have foreigners, and I would like the Senate leader to do the needful by inviting them to watch proceedings of the Senate. And they are colleagues from the Republic of Tanzania.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to move that the Senate do admit the members and staff of the Parliament of Ghana into the Senate chambers to observe plenary proceedings. Mr. President, I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to second the motion ably by Senate leaders. I so second.
The distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that we do suspend our rules to admit strangers from Ghana, though our colleagues in Parliament, to have access to the hallowed chambers of the Senate. Those who are in support of the motion that we suspend our rules to allow strangers to approach the Senate, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Sergeant at Arms may now proceed to bring them in. Clerk, Senate Leader, they are not coming for confirmation, so let's continue. Let's continue.
Point of order. Mr. President, point of order.
So, distinguished colleagues, distinguished Senator Mustafa came to whisper to me that I should appeal that we put on our best conduct. If they are coming to observe proceedings, we should behave the same way we normally behave. I prefer transparency. So I rule him out of order.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes, point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Dr. Tony Nwoye, representing the people of Anambra North. Mr. President, I'm calling from point of order 42, personal explanation. I read, by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, my personal explanation has to do with the death of one of my constituents.
Distinguished colleagues, distinguished Senator Tiriwe approached me and said he will come under Order 42 to make personal explanation, but he needs the leave of the Senate. Is it the view of the Senate that he be allowed to continue with the personal explanation? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm very grateful for this honor and opportunity. My personal explanation arises from the death of Professor Ben Obiefuna Nwabeze, who happened to be one of my constituents till his death. Professor Ben Obiefuna Nwabeze, I hereby invite the Senate to note with shock the demise of Professor Ben Nwabeze, on 29th of October 2023. This is a global acclaimed scholar, a constitutional lawyer of repute, a man who was acclaimed that he published most legal works and also a public administrator. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I must say that Professor Ben Nwabeze is a human rights crusader, Pan-Africanist, elder statesman, as well as patriot extraordinary. The Senate recalls that Professor Ben Nwabeze was born in Atani, Obado local government, 94 years ago. He attended CMS Primary School, Atani, and proceeded to attend Onitsha College, as well as University of London. The Senate remarks that Professor Ben Nwabeze's unparalleled scholarly prowess is attended by publishing astonishing 33 books, distinguished colleagues, with emphasis 33 books, and the 300 academic research papers, and numerous public-inspired electronic and print media publications and commentaries. The Senate further notes that Professor Ben Nwabeze's Galaxy of Honors includes Senior Advocate of Nigeria in 1978. This was the first man, non-practicing lawyer, to be conferred with the prestigious rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria in 1978. Professor Ben Nwabeze, based on these published works, he went ahead to bag the Nigeria National Order of Merit, as well as Nigeria Most Outstanding Constitutional Lawyer Icon Award. Professor Ben Nwabeze also bagged and was inducted into Hall of Fame for life for labor, being a member of International Labour Organization. The Senate observes that Professor Ben Nwabeze's 6 decades consistent constitution-making career echoed most prominently in estimable contributions in Nigerian pioneer adoption of presidentialism. Professor Ben Nwabeze served as a secretary of Constitutional Drafting Committee in 1978 and 1977. He shared and also later on became the secretary of that subcommittee that gave us 1979 Constitution. That presidential constitution is what we're enjoying today. The Senate is aware that Professor Ben Nwabeze was an uncommon colossus whose dexterity covered other public areas of life beyond legal scholarship, as proved by his banking experience as executive director, as well as secretary of United Bank of Africa. He later became the chairman of Orient Bank. He later became the Honorable Minister of Education. Professor Ben Nwabeze served as a member, Presidential Advisory Council, as well as member of International Labour Organization, Committee of Experts, among other public and private sector responsibilities. The Senate regrets that his demise is a great loss to his family, Obado local government, Anambra North Senatorial District, Anambra State, Igbos, and Nigeria as a whole. Senate accordingly resolves to observe a minute silence in honor of Professor Ben Nwabeze. Send a condolence letter as well as message to commiserate with the family, the people of Anambra State, as well as Anambra State government. Then urge and appeal to federal government to immortalize Professor Ben Nwabeze by naming any public institution after Professor Ben Nwabeze. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, unfortunately, the distinguished Senator Tony Way came under Order 42, and with your permission, I'll read. By the indulgence of the Senate, which he sought and obtained, and the leave of the President of the Senate, which he sought and obtained, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. So, distinguished Senator Woye, you just send me a copy of the statement. And we wouldn't entertain any debate because you came under Order 42. But let me take the privilege of being here to also say that, yes, indeed, Professor Ben Akabweze, yeah? Huh? Mwebweze was a legal icon and a great writer. There's no doubt that, yes, his generation, most of them had passed away, but he remains one of the best legal minds that this country had ever produced. We will, if I can have what you propose, we'll, yes, the clerk of the Senate, will proceed. So, as proposed, the Senate will observe a minute silence in honor of the departed Nigerian icon. The Senate will also send a letter of condolence to commiserate with the family and the good people of Anambra State. The Senate will urge the federal government to immortalize him by naming Federal Polytechnic Oko after him, if the Senate if the federal government so desires. So if the Senate may rise to honor the departed icon. May the soul of our late Professor Ben Nwabweze rest in perfect peace.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Just before we entertain the next point of order, let me just, on your behalf, welcome our colleagues from the Parliament of Ghana to Nigeria. We have Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim. He's the first Deputy Minority Whip, and he has just stood up, so we welcome you. Unfortunately, in the Senate, we don't clap, but we can shake our head to acknowledge your presence. So you are welcome. We have Honorable Jocelyn Tete, also from the Parliament of Ghana. So you're welcome. We have Ms. Patricia Oforiwa Owusu Ansa. I think that's one of the clerks of the Senate in Ghana. You're welcome. We have Ms. Sarah Nyaunu, that is one of the directors in the Parliament of Ghana. You're welcome. They are here to observe the proceedings. But just to inform you that where we are now is a temporary edifice, and this is one of our committee rooms, but our main chambers, the hallowed chamber of the Senate, is under construction. And by the grace of, sorry, it's under renovation and reconstruction. So it's under renovation. I direct the clerk of the Senate immediately after these proceedings to take you to inspect the place, in case there is something you want to learn from it. It's very befitting of the status of Nigeria as a giant of Africa. So you are welcome to our committee room that we have converted to a sitting room for the Nigerian Senate. I wish you happy observations, and I pray that you learn something from here to take back to Ghana when you are departing. Yes. Point of order, Senator Karimi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Karimi Sunday. I represent Kogi West. My point of order is on Order 41, Rule 1, 2, and 3. And it has to do with matter of urgent public importance. I come under this.
Please read. As point of order, DSP, it was already on a point of order. Point of order on that order. Okay.
Order 38. Unless the Senate otherwise directs, the business of each sitting day shall be transacted in the following order: formal entry of the President of the Senate, number 1. Number 2, prayers. Number 3, approval of votes and proceedings. Number 4, oath / affirmation of allegiance and the oath affirmation of membership of new senators-elect. Number 5, message from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Number 6, other announcements by the President of the Senate. Number 7, petitions. Number 8, matters of urgent public importance. Number 9, personal explanation. Mr. President, personal explanation should have come first. Sorry, matter of urgent public importance should have come first before personal explanation. I'm raising this point of order because a similar situation came up yesterday, and it was advised that we should try as much as possible to go in line with this very order so that we don't go against our rules as we transact our business here. So it's advisable, I advise it now, that we, please, distinguished senators should follow this order so that we don't go against our rules. The former Senate President raised it yesterday, and we all were all advised to always go by this order. So, but because of the importance of this motion that is bringing, I urge Mr. President to allow him move it, but
he has not yet brought the motion.
Mr. President, I told you about the motion earlier today. It has to do with the strike embarked upon by Nigerian Labour Congress, and I think this matter is urgent enough for us to discuss, sir. So may I have your permission to go ahead with my...
But the thing is that the point of order raised by the Deputy Senate President is noted. However, we may use our Rule 1 sub B to take another matter of urgent national importance. And Rule 1B says that the proceedings of the Senate and in all committees of the Senate shall be conducted in accordance with the standing rules as enumerated in Order 38. However, in 1B, it says that in all cases not provided for in this standing order or by sessional or other orders or practice of the Senate shall, by resolution, regulate its procedure. If we want to allow you to go outside the rule, then I have to put the question. So you can sit down. Is it the view of the Senate that the issue at hand, the strike by workers, is urgent enough for us to depart from our rules? Those in support say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. Then the ayes have it. So under this special circumstance, you may now proceed with your point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President, my colleagues. The matter, as I've said, has to do with the strike embarked upon by the Nigerian Labour Congress. And I will also want to take the leave of the House, the Senate, that the Rule 3, that is, a senator moving a motion under combined orders 41 and 51 shall ensure that copies of the motion are available for all senators when approval to move the motion is granted. I cannot make copies available because my secretariat staff, they are locked outside. So you may also wish to waive this rule for me to move the motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Your point of order is noted. The Senate on its own may decide to proceed later in a closed session to discuss the urgent matter at hand. Senate Leader. Yes, proceed, point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm coming under Order 42. With your personal explanation, with your permission, I will read. That's not giving me permission now.
Yes. Your mic, please.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The term of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make is sought. Mr. President, I discussed yesterday and today with you about a boat mishap in my senatorial district, which claimed the lives of over 70 people. Mr. President,
You written it down? You have it to circulate to all senators? Distinguished colleagues, is it the view of the Senate that distinguished senators be allowed to make a personal explanation? Those in support say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may proceed to distribute it and go ahead. Let's have a copy, and then you use your mic.
a Senate note on the 28th of October 2023, the people of Arrokola and Karela Mido local government area of Taraba State, North Senatorial District, were thrown into mourning following a boat incident conveying 104 passengers, comprising of 42 men and 45 women and 17 children, en route from Mayanareo village in Ardokola local government area, capsized around Plenary village of Karela Mido local government area, which claim with about 50 to 60 passengers got drowned, while some managed to swim to the river bank. The Senate notes that search and rescue operation was activated while agreement was reached for local divers to keep watch for more survivors and recovery of passengers. About 20 dead bodies were found while others are still missing. Further disturbed that since the occurrence of this incident, the whole commuters using the river bank as the only means of transportation due to the rainy season are in fear of going about their daily activities for lack of safety measures and materials. The Senate notes that the Senate observed a prayer that the Senate observe 1 minute silence for those that lost their lives in the incident. 2, the Senate urged the National Emergency Agency, NEMA, to provide safety materials such as life jackets for commercial operators and passengers flying the river. The Senate urged that the relevant authorities to enforce the use of life jackets before operation. That the Senate urged that the Northeast Development Commission to provide relief materials for the victims. Thank you, I so move.
That the Senate observe 1 minute silence for those that lost their lives. Those in support of this say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. That the National Emergency Agency management will provide safety materials such as life jackets for commercial operators and passengers plying the riverbank. Those in support of this say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. That the yes.
That's all. This is something that's why you sit down.
So may we observe a minute silence in honor of the dead. May the soul of our brothers and sisters in Ado Kola local government area of Taraba North, where about 50 to 60 people lost their lives in a boat mishap, rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill, a House bill, standing in my name on the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons Bill 2023, HB 207. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons Bill 2023, HB 207, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons Bill 2023, SB 207, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Kaka Shehu Lawan on the Federal Pediatric Center Maiduguri Establishment Bill 2023, SB 147. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Pediatric Center Maiduguri Establishment Bill 2023, SB 147, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Pediatric Center Maiduguri Establishment Bill 2023, SB 147, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Dan Kwabo Ibrahim Hassan on the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act Amendment Bill 2023, SB 261. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act Amendment Bill 2023, SB 261, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA Act Amendment Bill 2023, SB 261, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Akwashiki Godia on the Federal University Lafayette Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2023, SB 264. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University Lafayette Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2023, SB 264, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal University Lafayette Teaching Hospital Establishment Bill 2023, SB 264, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Jimo Ibrahim Folorunshah on the Federal Data Bank Establishment Bill 2023, SB 263. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Data Bank Establishment Bill 2023, SB 263, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Data Bank Establishment Bill 2023, SB 263, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, the first order of the day, having been overtaken by the event of our earlier invitation to the members of delegation of the Parliament of Ghana to be admitted, I move to the second order of the day, which is the second reading of the Federal College of Aviation Technology, Ilara, Remo, Ogun State, Establishment Bill 2023, SB 52. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 10th October 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Daniel Olugbenga Justus to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Daniel Olugbenga Justus.
Our Senate President, most distinguished colleagues, I remain Otumba Engineer Gbenga Daniel, representing the people of Remo and Ijebu in Ogun East Senatorial Districts. Perhaps it's nice to inform my colleagues that the Remo and Ijebu division are the only division that are yet to be defeated by any of the Anglo-Saxon wars that plagued our land several years ago. Mr. President, sir, today's bill essentially aims to upgrade an existing federal technical college to a fully fledged Federal College of Aviation Technology in order to provide full-time courses in various specializations in the aviation industry and to make provision for the general administration of the college and for related matters. My most distinguished colleagues, aviation technology encompasses the various technological advancements and innovations that have shaped the field of aviation. From the early days of aviation to the present, technology has played a crucial role in improving the safety, efficiency, and capabilities of aircraft. Aircraft design and construction over the years have evolved significantly. A lot of advancements in materials, such as lightweight composites and alloys, have allowed for the development of stronger, more fuel-efficient aircraft. Computer-aided design, CAD, and simulation tools have revolutionized the design process, enabling our engineers to model and analyze aircraft performance, aerodynamics, and structural integrity more accurately. Mr. President, sir, navigation and communication systems have greatly enhanced the safety and efficiency of air travel. Global Positioning System, GPS, and Inertial Navigation System, INS, have made aircraft navigation more accurate and more reliable, enabling our pilots to determine their precise position in real time. Communication systems such as very high-frequency VHF radios and satellite communication have improved the coordination between aircraft air traffic control, enhancing safety, and reducing the risk of collisions. Flight management systems, FMS, are also computer-based that automate various tasks of pilots, including navigation, flight planning, and performance optimization. FMS technology have advanced significantly, offering features like auto-throttle, auto-land, and optimized flight routes. This system enhances flight safety, reduce pilot workload, and improve fuel efficiency. Other areas worthy of mention in the field of aviation are the engine technology, the safety systems, the unmanned aerial vehicles, amongst others. In essence, Mr. President, aviation technology continues to evolve, driven by ongoing research and developmental efforts. As industry embraces digitalization, artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies, we can expect further advancement that will shape the future of aviation, making air travel safer, more efficient, and environmental friendly. Mr. President, my worthy colleagues, aviation technology in Nigeria has witnessed significant growth and development over the years. As the largest economy in Africa, Nigeria has made notable strides in the aviation sector, both in terms of infrastructure and technological advancement, especially in the areas of airports and infrastructure on navigation and communication systems. aircraft maintenance and repair, safety and regulatory system, and so on and so forth. Nigeria has invested in aviation training and recruitment to develop a skilled workforce in the industry. And as a matter of fact, as you are aware, there are several new airports that are bursting in Nigeria today. While Nigeria has made significant efforts in aviation technology, there are still challenges to address. These include the need for continued investment in infrastructure development, the enhancement of safety and security measures, and the promotion of research and innovation in aviation technology. By addressing these challenges, Nigeria can further strengthen its aviation sector, boost economic growth, and promote connectivity both domestically and internationally. The establishment of the Aviation Technology College in Ilara Remo will no doubt boost academic training and researches in the areas of aircraft maintenance, air traffic control, and pilot training, while complementing the existing Nigerian College of Aviation Technology in Zaria. It may interest you to know that the Ogun State government already has an existing Gateway International Agro-Cargo Airport in Ileshoremo, and they are also planning what we call an aerotropolis, a city whose development will be centered around the airport. The existing Federal Technical College in Ilaramo is in disuse, and I visited the location during my campaign tour for this position, and it can conveniently begin to offer the courses for the Federal College of Aviation Technology right there in Ilararemo. My dear President and my respected colleagues, although some staff of the new college are already on the federal government payroll, while working with the existing technical college in line with Order 76.3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2023 as amended, the financial implication of this bill is also attached. In closing, Mr. President, I wish to urge the entire Senate to support this bill to the extent that this is indeed a low-hanging fruit. The infrastructure are in place. Most of the administrative staff are there, but there are indeed no students offering those courses that are currently being offered. It's therefore a low-hanging fruit if we can get the support that this new institution can be activated as soon as possible. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Any contributions from the floor? Yes, distinguished senator.
The Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Dr. Titus Zam. I represent the dynamic people of Benue Northwest Senatorial District. I rise to support this bill ably moved by my colleague, distinguished Senator Gbenga, because I'm aware that in the whole of Nigeria, there is only one aviation technology school located in Zaria. And given the size of the country, and also the volume of air travel that our economy requires, one single aviation school might not be able to serve the aviation requirements of this country. So establishing another one in the southwest part of Nigeria makes not only economic sense, it also makes both political and air service sense. I therefore support in its entirety this bill, and I do second. Thank you, distinguished colleagues and Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Isonaso.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Osita Isonaso. I represent Imo West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to lend my support to this bill. The bill is self-explanatory in the sense that the school we are talking about is already in existence. We are just talking about changing from one sector to another sector, which is aviation technology. To that extent, I concur with the sponsor of this bill, but my worry is about the financial compendium of this bill. I've looked at the capital estimate, and I've also looked at the recurrent estimate. It does appear to me that what is being proposed as a capital estimate will be grossly insufficient for the proposed Aviation Technology Institute. Mr. President, if you look at item number 4 under capital, which is communication facilities, is a paltry sum of 3.3 million. I think this is grossly insufficient to be able to provide aviation navigational facilities in that school. So I will propose that we have to look into it once more. The operational vehicles under item number 5 cannot be more than the communication facilities. Office space and setting, 14 million is also very small. Office equipment at 22 million is neither here nor there. So, Mr. President, I think we have to look at this properly and increase the communication facility, because that's what is needed in that school more than any other thing. Now, for the recurrent estimate, the training for 10 million is okay. Emolument and allowances, they're okay. But I would like us to look at the capital estimate in finally considering this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Father Hansi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the proposal by the bill wholeheartedly, and least for one important advantage. Now that the exchange rate is not accessible again, I know those of us who have already engaged our children in aviation schools abroad, we know what is real exchange rate is all about now. For the technology, the aviation technology to be brought to our doormat, I salute the courage of Senator Tumbagbenga Daniel. We have enough captains of industries, particularly who give our children the real aviation technology impact they need now in Nigeria, instead of wasting our scarce foreign exchange on training our sons and daughters abroad. With this and with all other equipment maintenance, instead of going to other countries to maintain our aircraft, all these things will be encompassed in the real bill. And that is why I have to support Senator Usinaso on the capital outlay. That is going to consume capital, but it will reduce Nigeria foreign exchange stress we are having. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Tamuwa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, I rise to support the second reading of this bill. And the reasons are simple and clear. Aviation sector is dynamic and is expanding in Nigeria. The Aviation College Zaria cannot and is not enough and adequate enough to cater for the needs of training and retraining of aviation experts and the requirements that we have in the country. I therefore believe that with the coming on board of this in Ilaro, it will help to offtake a number of votes that could not be admitted in Zaria. And as said by my colleagues, it will also help in saving a lot of our forex that we pump into training and retraining of aviation experts elsewhere outside the shores of this country. So for all intents and purposes, this bill is timely, and I therefore urge my distinguished colleagues to support it going for second reading and eventual passage for us to have this institution on stream. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Adams Oshumole.
Mr. President, sir, and my distinguished colleagues, my name is Adams Ali Oshumole. I represent the great people of Edo North in Edo State. I support the second reading of this bill and all the arguments that have been advanced. I do so consistent with my conviction that Nigeria needs to move away from establishing more and more universities where people are taught mass comm and all those sociology or courses that modern economy hardly require. I think it is consistent with the direction in which the world is going to shift emphasis to technological institutions such as this, so that we produce more people who are competent not only to deal with aviation-related issues at home, but they may well be competent to lend a helping hand to wherever those skills are required in any other part of the world. As for the issue of allocation, I think this for me is neither here or there. We live in a dynamic world. Whatever estimates are there is just to indicate the fact that you do not have to, you can't establish a university an institution without financial backing. I think we do have an appropriation committee, and I will expect that they will liaise with people who have the requisite technical know-how, who understand what facilities are required, the estimated cost of those facilities, whether these are equipment, whether they are buildings, whether they are vehicles, the number of staff required, the kind of salaries for such staff. It is all of that that have to be taken into account by those who know. I think our business, Mr. President, is to do the needful. First, establish the university. Our people say you don't have to worry about the name of a child until the baby is born. So I like to support that this bill be read for the second time. Thank you, sir.
Last intervention, the senior Senator Natasha Aboti Uduaga.
Mr. Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaha, representing the good people of Kogi Central. I stand here to support the second reading of the bill sponsored by Senator Olugbenga Daniel. In the year 2019, the new space was taken over by some South African teenagers that assembled and flew a 4-seater aircraft across the continent. And that actually drew my attention on the fact that Africa has taken its right space in the 4th Industrial Revolution. And the question is, how about Nigeria, the giant of Africa? So, in building capacity across the various sectors beyond, of course, trade, industry, communication, like distinguished senator said, we need to begin to think deeply about growing capacity and skills in technology-driven areas. And of course, without a doubt, considering the fact that this administration is serious about establishing and reviving the Ajaokuta Steel Company, in no doubt, we'll be speaking not about assembling planes, but also developing the spare parts right in Nigeria. Of course, that is when the steel industry is set up and running. So without a doubt, I lend my voice, being that of the good people of Kogi Central, hoping that in the nearest future, Kogi State is going to position itself as the industrial hub of the country and Africa, and we will proudly contribute our own quota in building the spare parts and, of course, lending our various technological support in having the aviation industry grow. Thank you so much. I do support the second.
Thank you, distinguished senators, for your contributions. And also, let me also thank distinguished Senator OGD Otumba Benga Daniels for this bill. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Aviation Technology, Ilara Remo, Ogun State, and for related matters 2023, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Aviation Technology, Ilara Remo, Ogun State, and for related matters 2023, second reading taken. Distinguished colleagues, this bill is now referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions, Tertiary Education and Institutions, third form. So the bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Education, Tertiary Institutions. I thought it used to be Tertiary Education. Tertiary Institutions and third form. No, it is Tertiary Education and third form. Am I right? Tertiary Education and third form. So the bill is referred to the Committee of Tertiary Education and third form to report back to the Senate in 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Federal University of Mining and Geosciences JOS Bill 2023 SB 12. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 27th July 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Dicket Satso Plank to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Dicket Plank.
The President of the Senate, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Dicket Plank, Senator representing the good people of Plateau Central Senatorial District. I rise to move a motion to allow me lead a debate on the bill earlier submitted. I so move. I think I need to be supported first. Or do I read the title? I should be supported first. Until I'm supported. Okay. 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 Okay, Tom. Okay. President of the Senate, my colleagues, a lead debate on an act to repeal the Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences Act 2019 and establish a Federal University of Mining and Geosciences, JOS, and for other related matters. my distinguished colleagues, this bill was read the first time in this chamber on Thursday, 27 July 2023, and I crave your indulgence to highlight the background of this bill towards providing justification for the Senate to pass it into law. The importance of the extractive and mining industry in Nigeria cannot be overemphasized. This is more so when the country is looking for diversity in the economy that has been predominantly relying on crude oil. Mining in Nigeria commercially started as far back as the 18th century, culminating into the rural colonial rule, with the colonial masters cashing in on the abundance of mineral resources in Nigeria, one of which is the tin ore in Jos Plateau. The British extracted large quantities of tin ore from Jos that led to the establishment of a miniature mining research center. While the one on the plateau was being established by the British, others were being established in Ghana and India. Ghana had the Tarkwa Technical Institute of Mines, and this Ghana's own has since metamorphosed into a University of Mines and Technology, offering a variety of courses ranging from mines and mining technology, geosciences, and environmental studies, amongst others. The one established in Nigeria was upgraded into the Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences by the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development in 2001. This institute had continued to exist without any legal framework until 2018, when an enabling act was enacted. The institute has done fairly well, and since its establishment, by offering diploma, postgraduate diploma courses in the area of mining engineering and geosciences, with 3 campuses and functionable laboratories in existence. All that is required at the moment is to upgrade the institute to a degree-awarding institution. My highly respected colleagues, the proposed bill will also support efforts aimed at positioning Nigeria's mining sector as a viable sector for diversifying the country's economy away from the excessive dependence on income from crude oil exports. Establishing the Federal University of Mining and Geosciences, JOS, will enable Nigeria to build the domestic human capacity, knowledge, and skills required for the development of the mining sector. The proposed university will be supervised by the Federal Ministry of Mines and Technology and Steel Development. Mr. President, my colleagues, with the establishment of this university, it is expected that it will deepen research on mineral exploration, exploitation, and skilled knowledge of many facets of mining resources management, including geosciences and engineering to our citizens. The very essence of this bill is the need to build specialization in areas that are critical to nation building, hence the establishment of special universities like the University of Agriculture, the Petroleum University, the University of Education, Marine University, Universities of Medical Sciences, Army University, and Air Force universities, amongst others. It is worthy of note that Nigeria does not have a university that has to do with mineralogical research, despite the abundance of the mineral resources in the country. Most importantly, minerals and technology go hand in hand, and it will not be good for our country not to deepen knowledge and research into what God Almighty has abundantly and graciously given unto us. It will be a great disservice not only to the country, but the citizens as well. Neglecting this area will also allow for expatriate and illegal miners to keep exploiting the nation due to dearth of knowledge in that area by our citizens. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, in the light of the above realities highlighted above, I implore you all to give the bill your full support, as it has the capacity to turn around the country's abundant resources into profitable assets for the nation, create job opportunities through the value change that will be created in the mining and extractive industries. This will bring about national development that will be of immense benefit to our citizens and the nation at large. My colleagues, Mr. President and my colleagues, this bill has no consequential financial implication as it seeks to upgrade an already existing institution. I thank you for this opportunity, and I count on all of us to reason and support this bill to take the second reading. Thank you so much.
Dismissed Senator Ahmed Lawan, SP Emeritus.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very distinguished and respected colleagues. I'm Ahmed Ibrahim Lawan. I represent Yobe North Senatorial District. Mr. President, this is one bill that is very critical for the development of our country. While it is true that Nigeria benefits from its oil and gas endowments, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Nigeria does not reasonably benefit from its solid minerals subsector. The fact that we have an institution that we now feel should be transformed into a university is to say that we need to have those with expertise and skills that will help develop this subsector. Mr. President, the solid minerals subsector is a failure in Nigeria. It contributes so far less than 0.7% to our GDP. And this really does not help us as a nation to improve on the diversification that is necessary, that we must have to do to run away from being oil and gas economy only. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, there is no state in Nigeria today that does not have one solid minerals or another in commercial quantity. I think, and in fact I'm convinced, that the vehemence with which we are fighting oil theft in Nigeria should also be the vehemence with which we should fight against what happens in the mineral subsector. We have stories, some may not be confirmed, but reliable enough to say that some foreigners come into our country with aircrafts, pack our solid minerals, and leave. This is not acceptable. In fact, if I have a chance to maybe administer the punishment, it should be as heavy as the stealing of our solid minerals. So, Mr. President, I feel that this Senate should also focus seriously on this sector, that at the end of our tenure, let's ensure that the solid minerals sector has developed or improved to give us at least 5% of our GDP in Nigeria. This, in addition to the diversification of the economy, will also reduce security tendencies, because today the solid minerals exploitation in Nigeria is both an economic and security matter. Because we know what is happening in Zamfara and some parts of Nigeria. We have been told foreigners come and exploit gold in Zamfara, even though not confirmed, but this must be taken and treated very seriously. I believe that this Senate can make a serious positive difference if we target to ensure that the solid mineral subsector also becomes better than what it is. And the contribution has been so low over the years, because before 2021, it was just about 0.3%. After about 4 years or so, or 3 years, let me say, by 2023, at this moment, is still less than 0.7%. We have to do something. We must do something. And I believe this Senate can do so in working together very closely with the executive arm of government. We have a minister, an honorable minister for the solid minerals, who, to me, has made very significant and serious statements and remarks regarding on the leap that this subsector needs to take. Let's work with him. Let's work with the executive arm of government to improve this subsector. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you for your contribution, the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues. My name is Olalere Oyewumi. I represent Osun West Territorial District in Osun State. Sir, I want to equally lend my voice to this very important and timely bill, because over the years, everybody has been emphasizing the need for us to emphasize from the oil sector alone. But we keep on saying it with little effort in terms of legislation on how to make sure Nigeria benefits from the presence of mineral resources in almost every state of Nigeria. And as per Parliament, the Senate of Nigeria, I think it will be very desirable. I will be doing our country a lot of good if we take the bull by the horn. We have a lot of mineral resources, as said, but to get the full benefit of it, I think the Senate needs this kind of a bill. And apart from passing the bill, we still need a lot of consultation and retreat to equally have a compendium of all the mineral deposits in various parts of the state. We should have a compendium of it. Then we should get sufficient data and the necessary information that we put in legislation to make sure that all hands are on deck. All the states where they have, because oil is exhaustible and non-replenishable. Once it finishes, there's nothing you can do about it. But these mineral resources too, we don't even know the quantity, we don't know the quality, but I think it is time from this bill as a starting point for us to move forward and get the best from the mineral resources. I so second, Mr. President.
Thank you, Leader. Distinguished Senator Igbisagba.
Mr. Senate President and my distinguished colleagues, I rise to support the second reading of this bill in two key areas. One, it is a developmental bill that aims at taking people away from the street by providing employment opportunity through the establishments of this university. And secondly, it is taking away the monolithic aspect of Nigerian economy by allowing mining industry to thrive. We have examples of industry like oil and gas, where we have PTI in Warri, Petroleum Training Institute, and we also have Federal University of Petroleum in the same Warri. I see no reason why we cannot have the same establishment in the city of Jos in order to provide more knowledge and educate training for our people. In the view of this, I want to heartily support and heavily agree in moving the second reading of this bill forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me first of all commend my colleague, Senator Plan of Plateau, for bringing forward or sponsoring this bill. This bill is so important that if not for abiding by the tradition of this hallowed chamber, that every bill, no matter how important it is, must be debated, I would have said, look, let's just give this bill an expeditious passage. There's no need for debate. I say this because of the importance of the solid mineral sector to our dear nation. We know that we've been lamenting year in, year out, every day, that we are not fully or substantially exploiting what God has given to us in terms of solid minerals. Now, since we have woken up from our slumber, there's a need to properly exploit the solid mineral. Then, of course, we need the necessary manpower to do so. We need necessary manpower. And how do you do so? It's through the establishment of this institution. Ghana has done that a long time ago. What are we waiting for? You cannot drive your zeal, our zeal, to fully exploit our solid mineral without the necessary manpower. And this is what this institution, proposed institution, will do for us. When we are serious about exploiting our petroleum resources, we went ahead to establish the Federal University of Petroleum at Eforum, and we've gotten so many professionals who are helping in our petroleum sector. So, since we are serious now, let's establish a university. Ghana has done so. Thank God we have the parliamentarians, Ghana parliamentarians here, not because of the fact that they cannot contribute to our debates. Of course, they will have even say something about it, but they can't, I'm sorry, they can't do that. So Ghana has done so. What are we waiting for? So please, my colleagues, let's not waste time on this. It's so important to us. So important. I'm even surprised that my colleague, the one that has been talking about Ajakuta, since she has not spoken about this. But don't worry, I've spoken for you. I have spoken for you. So, Mr. President, this bill is so important. I am sure everyone here supports this bill. No, I don't think anybody is against this bill here. So please, let's give it an expeditious passage so that we can fully put ourselves in that best position to exploit substantially our solid mineral resources given to us by God. I say submit.
Well, from the commission so far, I don't think there's any senator that is opposed to this bill going for a second reading. The point of order. What order? Which order? Order what? Order what? Order what? Order what? Order what? Yeah, read. Read order 42. Read. Well, we are on a very serious bill. When we are through, we'll give you the opportunity to go to order 41. So, distinguished colleagues, let me thank you for the contribution so far on all this all important bill and general contributions to the debates. So let me put the question. Those in support of the motion that this bill be read a second time, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Institute of Mining and Geosciences Act 2018 and establish the Federal University of Mining and Geosciences, JOS, and for related matters 2023. Second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to repeal the Nigeria Institute of Mining and Geosciences Act 2018 and to establish the Federal University of Mining and Geosciences, JOS, and for related matters 2023. Second reading taken. The bill is hereby referred to the Committee on Tertiary Education, telephone, and to report back in 4 weeks. Yes, Leader of the Senate, point of order.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, I come under Order 8 of 3 to move for an extension of time to enable us sit beyond 2 p.m. so that we can finish what we have on the other paper.
Minority Leader.
The President of the Senate, my distinguished colleagues, I stand to support the motion moved by the Senate leader that we extend our time beyond 2 o'clock to be able to complete matters on the other people. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that this hallowed chamber do extend its sitting beyond 2 p.m. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, distinguished Senator Natasha, point of order.
I apologize for the little mishap. Of course, I stand to support the bill.
The point of order. Are you withdrawing your point of order? Point of order withdrawn and noted. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished senators. The fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Nigerian Maritime University Okorenkoko Establishment Bill 2023 SB 75. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill, having first been passed by the 9th Assembly, was read for the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 1st August 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Joel Onowakpo Thomas to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Did I hear you right? That the bill, having been passed, should be read a second time?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, by way of information, I said the bill was passed by the 9th Senate. And the bill was also read for the first time in this chamber on, was read for the first time in this chamber on 21st August 2023.
As passed. Minority Leader.
Mr. President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I stand to second the motion moved by the Leader of the House, Leader of the Senate, sorry, that this bill be allowed to be read the second time. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the bill, having been presented to the hallowed chamber of the 10th Senate, be read a second time. Those in support of it, no? No? We have, because you said it has been passed. That's why I was a bit confused. Okay, we haven't passed it. So let's start it de novo, right? Okay. Distinguished Senator Joel, I wish to lead the debate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Joel Onoabo Thomas, representing the good people of Delta South Senatorial District. Mr. President, permit me to lead the debate of this important bill for the establishment of Nigerian Maritime University of Okerekoko. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Tuesday, 1st August 2023. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is important to note that this bill being represented today for second reading was passed by both chambers towards the end of the 9th Assembly. Unfortunately, the President was unable to assent to read before May 29, 2023, the terminal date of the last administration. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Nigerian Maritime University was established following the groundbreaking ceremony on the 10th May 2014 by the former President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, at Okerekoko, Delta State, in the creeks of the Niger Delta to curb youth restiveness and to bridge the educational gap. The bill is a bold step towards not only addressing the educational backwardness of the people of the difficult Niger Delta terrain, but also for joining the leagues of countries like the United States of America, South Korea, India, China, Britain, Panama, Canada, Netherlands, Brazil, Argentina, and Ghana as countries with such universities as platform for the training of top-class manpower for the maritime industry. It is noteworthy that as of today, there is a maritime academy at Oron, Akwa Ibom State. However, with the level of activities in the maritime sector, such as the ongoing work at the Lekki Deep Sea Port, Badagry Port, the existing Sapele, Brutu, Cocoa ports that are yet to be exploited and developed, which require huge manpower, the Maritime University of Oron alone may not be able to meet up with providing the required manpower for the sector. Hence, the original decision to set up this one. The Senate should note now that the country is set to make the blue economy as a major revenue earning window with the establishment of the Ministry of Blue Economy by Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCRF. The passage of this bill to enable the university to provide the needed manpower cannot be overemphasized. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is important to know that Delta State contributes more than 30% of the total oil and gas revenue of the Federation. And more specifically, it was in Uzeri, in Isoko South local government in Delta State and Delta South Neutral District specifically, that started the first exploration of oil in 1957. Till today, it is the largest petroleum producing community in Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it will interest you to know that there is no government institution of this caliber in the entire area, thus forcing the youth from the region to seek for university education very far outside their region. When fully functional, the Nigerian Maritime University of Okerekoko will provide accessible education to most of the young constituents in the southern part of Delta State, thereby reducing the chances of youth restiveness and illiteracy level. The objective of this university, the objectives for which this university is established, among others, are to encourage the advancement of learning and to hold out to all persons without distinction of race, creed, sex, or political conviction the opportunity of acquiring a higher education in maritime technology. 2, to develop and offer academic and professional programs leading to the award of diplomas, first degrees, postgraduate research, and higher degrees with emphasis on planning, adaptive, technical, maintenance, developmental, and productive skills in the engineering, scientific, and allied professional disciplines relating to maritime resources with the aim of producing socially matured men and women with capability not only to understand,
use and adapt existing technologies in the maritime industry, but also to improve on them and develop new ones. C, to act as an agent and catalyst through postgraduate training, research and innovation for the effective and economic utilization, exploitation, conservation of the country's maritime resources. D, to offer to the general public, particularly the maritime industry, as a form of public service, the results of training, research, and to foster the practical application of these results. E, to establish appropriate relationship with other national institutions involved in training, research, and development of technologies in the maritime sector. F, to identify the technological problems and the needs of the maritime industry and to find solutions to them within the context of overall national development. G, to provide and promote sound basic scientific training as a foundation for the development of maritime technology and applied science, taking into account indigenous cultures and the need to enhance national unity. And finally, to undertake any other activities appropriate for a maritime university of the highest standard. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the maritime sector of our economy has very high potentials and it requires high level of technical, scientific, and administrative skills to drive it. The sector today is dominated by foreign interests. The very few such professionals were trained abroad. This university, when fully operational, will save the federal government huge foreign exchange currently deployed to capacity building abroad. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the enactment of this bill will help in transforming educational fortunes in Nigeria, in producing the desired manpower and expertise for the maritime industry, now that Nigeria is yearning for local content in the industry, following the passage of the Content Development Bill into law. In line with our Order 76, Section 3, the Committee on Financial Implications is hereby attached. This bill seeks to provide a legal framework for the Nigerian Maritime University, which started off on the 10th of May 2014 and functional using a befitting temporary site on the Kurikuku. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you all to support this bill for the second reading. I so move.
Distinguished Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President Barrow Jibrin North. Mr. President, I second the second reading of this bill, but let me quickly say that the institution was established by former President Goodluck Jonathan, but became operational around 2015 upwards, when I was chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institution and Third Fund. So this institution is not new. It has been established, fully operational. What is needed here at this stage is to have a law setting it up as usual. And it was even passed in the ninth Senate, but it wasn't assented to by Mr. President. So I don't think there's any debate. It's not something new. We have done this. We've done this process here before. Yeah. So I think we should just go straight to the next stage of the processing of the bill. We don't need to debate it because we have done it before, and the school is purely operational. I say so, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in support of the motion that the bill be now read a second time, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Maritime University, Okerenkoko, Delta State, and for related matters 2023, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Maritime University Okerenkoko Bill, Okerenkoko, Delta State, and for related matters 2023, second reading taken. This bill is now referred to a committee of the whole for clause-by-clause consideration on the next legislative date, having been passed before. Clerk, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The fifth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ume Victor and 31 others on the urgent need to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line traversing Port Harcourt, Enugu, Maiduguri from narrow gauge rail to standard gauge rail. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ume Victor to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Ume.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ume, OFR. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, this motion is on the urgent need to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line, traversing Port Harcourt through Enugu, Makurdi through Maiduguri, from narrow gauge rail to standard gauge rail. This motion is co-sponsored by actually 34 senators. 31 are listed here. There were 3 omissions. Senator Kakashi Lawan from Borno Central, Senator Yaro Binos Davida, Adamawa South, and Senator Adeniba Francis Fadahunsi, Oshun East. Mr. President, may I proceed to present the motion, which has been outstanding for about 3 weeks now. The Senate notes that the Eastern Rail Line, which serves 4 geopolitical zones of South-South, Southeast, North-Central, and Northeast, runs from Port Harcourt through Enugu, Makurdi, Jos, Bauchi, and Maiduguri, is the longest and one of the oldest rail lines in Nigeria. The Senate also knows that a functional railway system in Nigeria will help to reduce vehicular traffic on our roads and save them from constant dilapidation. The Senate further notes that the Eastern Rail Line is the only direct link from Maiduguri to Port Harcourt Deep Sea Port for export processing activities from that flank. Aware that the federal government resolved in 2017 to modernize and standardize the Nigerian railway system by building standard gauge rail lines and the acquisition of modern coaches, both for passenger movement and goods across the country. The Senate is also aware that in 2017, the federal government borrowed a loan sum of $6.8 billion, United States dollars, for standardization and modernization of the Nigerian railways network. Further aware that in furtherance of this objective, the federal government embarked on modernization of the following rail lines: Abuja to Kaduna, Ajokuta to Itakpe to Warri, Lagos to Ibadan, Kaduna to Kano, and Kano to Maradi in Niger Republic. The Senate observes that modernization and standardization of almost all the above-mentioned rail lines have been completed or nearing completion and operational with new coaches. Port Harcourt to Maiduguri line remains the only narrow-gauge rail line in Nigeria. The Senate further observes that in April 2022, the federal government awarded a failed contract sum of $3.2 billion for rehabilitation and reconstruction of a narrow-gauge rail line instead of standard gauge rail line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, which has been vandalized, abandoned, and overgrown with weeds and trees. Pained that not only that the project failed, but the Chinese contractors partnering with the federal government on the project, who were expected to provide 85% of the expected funding program, abandoned the project without injecting any funds. concerned that the federal government should, as a matter of necessity, national interest, and the resultant anxiety of excluding the 4 geopolitical zones which the Eastern Rail Lines covers, maintain a common developmental program for the country by taking immediate steps to build standard gauge rail line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. Worried that the federal government is missing a huge amount of revenue by the exclusion of the Eastern Rail Line in the ongoing railway standardization and modernization program, and convinced that the inclusion of the Eastern Rail Line in the current modernization and standardization program will enhance sustainable socio-economic relationships across the country and also promote national integration and ultimately boost the economy and give a sense of belonging to all. The Senate accordingly resolves to, 1, call on the federal government to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line running from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri from narrow gauge rail to standard gauge rail. 2, call on the federal government to suspend the purported planned rehabilitation of the outdated narrow gauge rail from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. 3, call on the federal government to instead make arrangements for the proper funding of the construction of standard gauge rail in the Eastern Rail Line and the acquisition of modern coaches to wit. And 3, urge the Committee on Land Transport to ensure that all the 4 geopolitical zones within the Eastern Rail Line corridor benefit from the ongoing railway standardization and modernization program of the federal government. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you to support this motion so that Nigeria will maintain a uniform policy of having railway lines that are made and run with standard gauge rail. This is the only one outstanding out of the old rail lines built by the colonial administrations in Nigeria. I so move. Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues.
Yes, distinguished Senator Baribe.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Naya Baribe, and I represent Abia South. Mr. President, there's something to be very glad about by me being an indigene of this Senate. What I mean, Mr. President, is I've been here for some time, and this particular motion and the issues surrounding it is not just new. It was here when you were minority leader of the Senate. And
please, what did you say? That the Senate President was what?
There was a one-time minority leader of the Senate. So, Mr. President, this has been here since the 8th Senate. And one of the biggest problems that we have is that no transport minister has been able to give a reason why in modernization of rail lines built by the colonial masters in Nigeria, only the Eastern Rail Line has been ignored and sentenced to oblivion, like we have. And when I confronted the former minister, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, on why, he couldn't answer. All he said was, well, we are modernizing by just putting new rails. And I said, if it's a narrow gauge, how do you modernize a narrow gauge by bringing another narrow gauge? And there was absolutely no, I would say, rational explanation for it. So I second this motion with all amount of happiness by the fact that we now have another government that can take a look again, because it does not make sense. Because our people say that when you want to share things, equity is the best way to do. You cannot have a narrow gauge in the eastern part, a standard gauge western part, and even go back to go ahead to say you're building new rail lines that is going to transverse from Lagos to Calabar, that will be standard gauge, which will, of course, cross this particular one, which means that you cannot move coaches from one point to the other. So, Mr. President, I fully support this motion, and I urge my colleagues to make sure that all the 4 geopolitical zones on the Eastern Rail network are fully covered by a standard gauge. I know that they said that they signed a contract, but the contract is not being implemented as due. And there is now time for us to go back to the drawing board, because I come from Aba, Mr. President, and there is no rail line now. They removed the old ones and have not replaced anyone. So that gives us an opportunity. There's a right-of-way now. They don't need to pay for anything. The old right-of-way is there. All they now need to do is to just do further surveys and see how we can now put in something better for our people. I so submit.
Well, I think it's very straightforward. And if you look at it, the only thing that any other speaker here will do for the benefit of the Nigerian public will be to explain the difference between the narrow gauge and the standard gauge, so that they will understand. I think that's it. So whoever is going to speak next should be somebody who is well versed in it. So I recognize Senator Ningi, since he's still insisting that he knows the technicalities.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, my name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Center of Bauchi State. Mr. President, let me thank you most immensely for allowing this particular motion to come through. Leaders, Mr. President, write history, and this is, in my opinion, a very golden opportunity that the 10th Senate under your leadership is bringing this motion to bear. The one particular technical difference between the narrow gauge and the standard gauge. Narrow gauge is extinct. It's extinct. It's no longer in vogue. No country, Mr. Chairman, construct the narrow gauge in the entire world. So it is the standard gauge that's in place. Even the standard gauge is getting moribund because there are other superior gauges that are coming into being. The speed gauge, sir. This particular gauge on the narrow gauge will afford you to travel from Port Harcourt to Gombe to Maiduguri for 48 to 47 hours. On the standard gauge, it will reduce to almost 12 to 13 hours. On the speed gauge, it will only take 2 hours. Therefore, one of the problems associated with us as a country is that this particular line is the longest and almost the oldest, but it seems there is no political will. Probably they are looking at the money. And you could see other areas have been addressed with the standard gauge. And therefore, when the member of the motion approached some of us, not because I come from the Northeast, and not because it's the issue of the Northeast, the South, or the North Central. No. It is an issue of Nigeria as a whole. When we come together as one entity, one nation, one destiny. So, Mr. President, this is the issue. I beg you to look at this motion and take it through. Sir, one of the things that people do unconsciously or unconsciously, consciously or unconsciously, that some of these things, already the entire country is aware of what we are doing, because this motion has been in place for the last almost 15 years ago, and people are avoiding it. And even the senators will know that people will not pay attention. So by the time this motion is read, the community along this as enumerated by are feeling like they're sidelined. They're second-class citizens of Nigeria.
And Mr. President, tell them this Senate says you are not second class. You are Nigerians and we're treating you like Nigerians. Sir, this is the only line that traverses 4 geopolitical zones. And as far as 37 years ago, I was using this particular line from my place, Bauchi, to Port Harcourt, even when I was in secondary school, to visit an uncle who was in the army in Port Harcourt. Today, sir, nothing like that happens. The roads are dilapidated. And the worst roads in the entire country happens across this road, except the road between Akwa Ibom and Kalba that I actually traversed in the course of this assignment. We can't continue, sir, to have roads, some good roads in some other areas, and some terrible, deplorable roads in others. We must be equitable. We must justify why we're here. And I'm sure, Mr. President, with our leadership, Nigerians will know that we are making a difference, especially in bringing equity and fairness to bear. Thank you very much.
So I don't think we need to debate this because I also used that rail line when I was going to interview in Nigerian military school in the early 70s when most of our colleagues were not yet born. But for those who were born, you understand that it was a thing of delight to enter from Port Harcourt. Sometimes it would stop at Aba, we would join at Aba, and from there we knew all the villages and roads and all that. It was they had express also. Express, huh? Yes, you had local and express, but even the express used to stop at Aba to pick passengers who were going to Kafanchan. From Kafanchan going all the way down to Maiduguri. It was a beautiful thing. But now that rails have been modernized, we don't want to know what happened in the past. And we don't want to know what the past ministers thought. But what is worth doing is worth doing well. I think it's important that the Senate takes a position and conveys that position to the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that would like that rail line to be modernized and by true standard gauge and not this narrow gauge. And we can complete them in segments if we don't have enough funds. We can do so in segments, but to take us back to 1942 when that thing was constructed by the colonial masters or whatever is not the best. So is there anybody that is opposed to this? We go to the prayers. Prayer 1, call on the federal government to upgrade the Eastern Rail Line traversing Port Harcourt and many cities all the way to Maiduguri from the proposed narrow gauge to standard gauge rail. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, call on the federal government to suspend the purported planned rehabilitation of the outdated and moribund narrow gauge rail from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. Those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, call on the federal government to instead make arrangements for the proper funding of the construction of standard gauge rail in the Eastern Rail Line and the acquisition of modern coaches to which and further urge the Committee on Land Transport to ensure that all the 4 geopolitical zones within the Eastern Rail Line corridor benefit from the ongoing rail constructions through standardization and modernization programs of the federal government. Those in support of prayers 3 and 4 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So let me thank additional prayer. Yes, Senator Dubois.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President, my distinguished colleagues. My additional prayer here, if I will be allowed to explain before moving, or do I go ahead? Okay, the additional prayer here is to make life easier for citizenry. We urge the federal government to link the state capitals, including the federal capital territory, with light rails to this standard gauge that is coming up. Light rail. And that will help very tremendously. I so submit.
Any seconder? Yes, Senator Venus.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Binos Dauda Yaro. I rise to second the additional prayer as moved. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, additional prayer has been proposed that light rail systems should be consulted from state capitals, including the FCC Abuja, to link with this standard gauge proposed for the Eastern Rail Line. Those in support of this consortium of light rail say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Yeah. Senator Issa Jibrin.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, my additional prayer goes thus. Urge the federal government to identify and provide favorable terms to private investors, especially in the areas of tax concession, to encourage private-public partnership arrangement on this project. It's good.
Any seconder? Senator Abamoro.
Mr. President, thank you for this privilege. My name is Abba Moro. I represent the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this additional prayer ably proposed by my colleague from Kogi East, Senator Issa Jibrin. I so second.
Senator Bamoro, please elaborate for the benefit of our distinguished brothers. What are you seconding?
Mr. President, I think a motion, additional prayer has been moved by a colleague. Is that
what you are seconding? You have mentioned what you are seconding. You said the additional prayer has been moved, so you want to second the additional prayer. So mention the additional prayer you are seconding.
The additional prayer that has been moved by my colleague is to the effect that liberal terms should be established for partnership, especially private-public partnership of this arrangement for the standard gauge.
Distinguished colleagues, our brother Senator Issa Jibrin has moved additional prayer that liberal terms should be established for this standard gauge. So, before we add more water to the motion, let me thank distinguished Senator Ome and all those listed who moved this motion, that this motion is a national motion. The infrastructure required traverses 4 zones of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is not sectional in any way. And I think it is a motion that is patriotic. I think it's a motion that the federal government should take very seriously. And I think that I want to thank the Senate for even bringing this motion, because it will save the entirety of Nigeria. from all the way from Maiduguri through Bauchi, through Kaduna, through Kafanchang and all that. It's really a thoroughfare that will save almost half of Nigeria. So this is a patriotic motion, a national motion, nationality in everywhere. And it's something that we think should be handled with a bit of urgency, so that we do not mistake of taking us back to the archaic days of the pre-colonial era. So I thank all of you for your contributions, and I believe strongly that the federal government will listen to the Senate and do the appropriate. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day would have been a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Yaro Binos Dauda on the urgent need to investigate the cancellation of visas of 264 passengers on Air Peace flight to Jeddah by Saudi Arabia. But the chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs has briefed the leadership on the efforts being made by the federal government. But since Senator Yaro himself is here, I would ask Mr. President that you invite him to formally withdraw the motion in the meantime.
Well, if he has withdrawn, he has withdrawn. Unless you want him to withdraw with his own mouth. Okay, so use your mouth and withdraw then.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Binos Dauda Yaro, Adamawa South. Mr. President, yesterday I got the approval of the Senate to bring this motion today, but subsequent to plenary, I was briefed by the DSP and the chairman, Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs, that the matter has been investigated and resolved. Accordingly, I move that this motion be stepped down. I so move.
Well, distinguished colleagues, as the mover of the intended mover of the motion, there is no motion before us, has withdrawn his motion, and accordingly the withdrawal is sustained. Senate Leader.
Sorry, Mr. President. I just want to add that the motion, as approved yesterday and by the Senate, was out of concern of this Senate. And the withdrawal is not just like that. And I need to state this. I have a letter here from the Foreign Affairs, maybe most of us have done it, that following the government of Nigeria calls for calm following the cancellation of the visa of Air Peace passengers from Nigeria upon arrival in Jeddah of Saudi Arabia on the Monday, 13th November. I just want to clear this so that the public that we represent know that the Senate was concerned about what happened to Nigerians and wanted to take them. But then the Foreign Affairs Ministry issued out this press release that they are doing something about it. And the motion or the resolution of the Senate would have been for the Foreign Affairs Ministry to take affairs. I guess I felt this is important for the public to know. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished Senator, for the explanation. We were very concerned when the news broke that about 200 and something Nigerians had their visas cancelled on arrival in Saudi Arabia. and that would not occur well for a good relationship between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia. But the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as Senator Ndume has stated, has already issued a statement that the federal government has intervened and that the issue has been resolved between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia. So in view of that, there is no need for for the Senate to go ahead to take the motion. So you have seconded the motion to withdraw by implication in view of the information you have. Yes, seconding the motion that the issue be withdrawn. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So those in support that the motion be dropped in view of the resolution and the intervention of the federal government of Nigeria, say aye. Those against say nay. One more time, the ayes have it. And the leader of the Senate, you see, go on. Look at the mood of the Senate, but go on.
Well, Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, consistent with the patriotic mood of the Senate on the need for us to look into the ongoing labor strike as a matter of urgent public importance. And the same motion having been earlier moved by one of our distinguished colleagues, distinguished Senator Karimi Steve Sunday, that the Senate do look into these issues. May I move, sir, that distinguished Senator Karimi be invited at this point to move this motion of urgent public importance. I so move, Mr. President.
Certainly, it's no longer a motion. We are agreed that we are going to take it. So, but I think the difference is that since it's such an urgent and important discussion, we can go ahead by taking it in the plenary. Is it the view of the Senate that we should proceed to discuss it? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. So I think I think you can proceed to discuss the issue. We can discuss.
The chairman with their leave.
Initially, we agreed on a closed session.
There is no problem, Mr. President, we can discuss it. But what is very important, Ajamen, in matters of high national interest, usually the Senate leader moves and all of us will co-sponsor that particular motion. We've done it severally because this is an urgent national importance. But Karimi can do it and we can all co-sponsor.
The point of order is sustained. Senate leader, go ahead and move.
Well, oh, thank you. Nah.
The adjusted one. Where's the adjusted? Bring it.
Well, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, consistent with the customs and traditions of this hallowed chamber, as eminently and unequivocally reiterated by ranking distinguished Senator Ningi, I stand to move that the Senate consider the need for the Nigerian Labour Congress and associated labor unions to reconsider its current stand on the ongoing industrial action in overriding public interest and in the spirit of patriotism and adherence to rule of law. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, whatever was circulated before, I most respectfully call on our distinguished colleagues to please discountenance it and take this as a motion that I am moving, not necessarily following the content of what was circulated before. And I understand that it's actually been retrieved. But sir, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it's for us to note as a Senate that leaders of the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, counterparts and other affiliate labor unions, such as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, National Union of Electricity Employees, Nigerian Union of Teachers, Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, among others, have commenced a nationwide strike. Two, that the Senate is also aware that the strike, which has commenced since the 14th of November 2023, is not unconnected with the alleged assault and alleged brutality of the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress during the electioneering campaign that took place in Imo State. And three, worried that most of the demands of the Nigerian Labour Congress are not targeted towards just the welfare of the Nigerian workers, but essentially targeted on, or most essentially arising from the alleged political involvement of the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, who also is a citizen of Imo and who had every right to be a part of the political campaign process in Imo State. And Senate also apprised that the Act of the National Assembly established the Police Service Commission as a body that shall be in charge of the promotion and discipline of police officers, including the Commissioner of Police of Imo State, where it is found that, as a matter of fact, there was indeed brutality by the police of the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress freely participating in the political campaign process of Imo as a citizen of Imo State. And further worried that that if this strike is allowed to continue, Nigerians will be the worse for it, and it could lead to a total collapse of our economy. Therefore, resolves, one, to urge the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, and other associated unions to immediately abate the strike in the interest of the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and in respect for rule of law, and two, to mandate the leadership of the Senate in conjunction with the Senate Committee on Labor to invite the leadership of NLC, TUC, and other associated labor union bodies for a meeting, for an urgent meeting aimed at addressing the grievances of Labor with a view to resolving them accordingly. I so move, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Muhammad Adam Alero is my name. I represent KB Central. Mr. President, I rise to second this very important motion, heavily moved by the leader of the Senate. Mr. President, in seconding this motion, if we don't intervene, this strike will cause a lot of economic distortion, a lot of devastation to our economy. Already, transportation has been paralyzed, ministries have been closed. Even this morning, some of us found it difficult to access the National Assembly. And right now, our aides are not in our offices. So the intervention of the National Assembly is very apt and timely. And instead of the Senate intervening, I will want the National Assembly to intervene jointly with the House of Representatives. You as the Senate President and the House of Representatives Speaker should call the leadership of the trade union to discuss and amicably resolve this crisis, since it has nothing to do with their demands. It is all because of the brutality meted to the labor leader. It's unfortunate it has happened, even though in the motion it is being said that he has no right to participate in the electioneering process. I think it's wrong. He has right to intervene. He has right to participate in the electioneering process. And if we insist on that, it will only escalate the crisis. We should do whatever is humanly possible to settle this amicably. And that's why it's important for both you, the Senate President, and also the Speaker of the House of Representatives to call the leadership for a meeting. It has been done severally, and it's unfortunate the Minister of Labor is not in the country. Maybe he would have been the right person to, first of all, intervene. But I understand that he accompanied the President to Saudi Arabia. Possibly he will be back today or tomorrow. But that notwithstanding, even if he's around, your involvement in resolving this crisis is very important. We should be seen to be concerned with what is happening nationally. It is a matter of urgent national importance. I support all the prayers associated with the motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think the distinguished Senator Adam Doshimole may have information on this strike.
Mr. President, thank you very much for calling me, even though I choose not to ask for the floor. And I want to also appreciate my distinguished colleagues for the concerns they've shown. Mr. President, you recall that at every turn I have always made the point that my permanent constituency is organized labor. Nothing on this planet Earth will make me to turn against my own past. But I am concerned, first, about the way police manage protest. I fought it when I was in the NLC. I was dragged on the floor of, on the tarmac of the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport because we had issued a notice to go on strike. And I was brutalized. I think it is legitimate for us as senators and in this Senate to condemn without any reservation acts of brutality against protestants, including the President of the Nigeria Labour Congress. However, like I had cause to say yesterday, I am asking myself, what are the issues in dispute that had led to the president of the NLC going to his own state at that time, few days to the election in Imo State. And that will be the second protest in Imo over the past few months. And in the end, power is switched off, airports are closed, everything is closed at the eve of an election, making it difficult for an objective analyst to distinguish between a political agitation and issues that have to do with the welfare of workers. The other time, what led to protest was the issue of division between who do the workers of Imo State elect as chairman of the NNC in Imo, vis-a-vis who the NNC president preferred. Because I'm a labor man, there are things I can't say publicly. I think it will suffice first just to limit myself to the issue of whether or not we should intervene. I think we have obligation not only to intervene, but to do everything we can to find solution. But also take advantage of this moment to appeal to the federal government to honor their own obligation with regards to, even though this is not the matter that led to the violence in Imo, but to ensure that agreements reached are implemented timeously, and the 35,000 naira increase across the board is implemented by the 36 states and the 774 local governments, so that we can have a lasting solution. Because if we keep picking the issues one by one, I'm not sure when we'll be out of this. So I support the motion that Your Excellency, Mr. President, and your colleague in the National Assembly, in the House of Rep, together with whoever you pick to join you to mediate and ensure that the issues are resolved. I was clear even when I spoke yesterday, but you don't have to agree with me, but you have no right to brutalize me. However, having been brutalized the way I was brutalized before, we have to find a way to find solution in a way that does not create further problems. The issues are a little more intricate, that it's not something you want to canvass, in an atmosphere such as this. But I want to thank the mover of the motion. I think you will be able to, Your Excellency can help to find solution. And I think for what I read, the federal government was already inviting them for discussion to get the IG to fish out those who were involved, since they said they are the one who's rescued him. In the course of rescuing him, they should have made some arrests. And if they did make some arrests, to bring those people who are involved in it to justice, because they are our laws. Nobody has the right to mete out jungle justice on anyone, regardless of the conduct of the person. Thank you, Mr. President.
There is a point of order from Senator Ningi.
Order 37(2), because my brother was speaking out. He was not speaking on the motion, and with their leave, can I, Mr. President, I do not think it is necessary at this juncture to open issues with labor. What we need to do, first and foremost, the labor have the right, constitutional right, to go on strike. But what is needed now is an emergency situation. Going to history of what transpired or what has not transpired is not, in my opinion, the right thing to do. All we need to do, sir, is to invite the labor union and the association to an emergency meeting with the Senate, President, and the leadership. Finish. I am immediately. That's all we need. You stand here, sir, and begin to look at what happened and what has not happened in the past. You are opening wounds. We wanted a stop to this. Regardless of what the IG all the executive are doing. The Senate needs to be doing this thing right now and right away. That's my take.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Ningi has proposed two prayers. First prayer is that the Senate should call on the Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC to immediately put an end to this strike in the interest of the nation. And the second prayer is that the Senate leadership, led by the Senate President, should invite the leadership of the concerned labor unions, TUC, NLC, ASU, to an emergency meeting in order to discern what the real issues are and how to find solutions to them. So I would like somebody to put it in a clearer form for us to have a motion. Yeah. Okay, motion. Then Senator Ndume can second the motion.
Mr. President, in seconding the motion, I want to say that this issue, as raised, is something that the senators, we as senators, should stand up to it. The incident in Imo is unfortunate. It has happened a long time ago. It's in Imo. I am from Borno. I want to go to Borno tomorrow, and maybe I will not be able to go for an offense that was committed in Imo. It is wrong to have attacked somebody for protesting, as they did, but it is equally wrong for myself and others in 35 states to be punished for what happened in Imo. We as senators are elders by definition. We should call a spade and do the right. I understand that the governor has immunity and therefore he cannot be sued. But the police said they are doing something. So what you need to do, in addition to what our leader said, is to call the labor as we used to do and talk with them and resolve this amicably without necessarily putting it or subjecting it to another public debate. You call them and talk to them, have them understand. Once they resolve it, it is their decision now to either talk to the public about it or whatever. But we as senators, we should be seen as people trying to resolve the issue amicably. And therefore, the leadership doesn't even have to. Maybe yourself, the Deputy Senate President, and the leader. It's enough. Don't be a big crowd again. So that I'm seconding. So therefore, second the motion as moved by the leader.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has finally been supported by Senator Ndume. In fact, the prayers, that prayer one, that we urge the Nigerian Labour Congress, the TUC, ASU and all protesting unions to immediately call a stop to the ongoing strike in the national interest. Those in support of prayer one say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer two, mandate the Senate President and the Senate leadership to immediately summon a meeting with the protesting union leaders with a view to resolving the issues amicably. Those in support of prayer two say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank the Senate leader and all the distinguished senators for discussing these issues, making their contributions, and arriving at the two-pronged solution. And also plead that the NLC and the TUC and all other labor unions, no matter the grievances, should, in the public interest, put an end to this strike to avoid unnecessary suffering by ordinary Nigerians who are also part and parcel of their families and who wish them well and who have no ill feelings towards them and who should not suffer for the malfeasance of others. And then immediately urge the clerk of the Senate to put a date, immediately contact them for an emergency meeting with the Senate leadership with a view to resolving these issues. Accordingly, having exhausted all the other items on the other paper, no, it's past 2 o'clock. It's past 2 o'clock. Having exhausted all the items on the other paper, this Senate is hereby adjourned to the 16th day of November 2023 in line with our rules at 11 a.m. prompt.